There's something about alcohol that once felt almost magical to me. Having a drink in my hand seemed to unlock hidden advantages, like a strange kind of social power. It wasn't only about the taste or the buzz, but the way it let me glide through situations that normally made me tense or awkward. At parties, I felt looser. In interviews, I somehow came across as friendlier, and in casual encounters, it seemed to help me come across as more approachable. It genuinely felt like I had found a shortcut to fitting in, and in many ways it worked exactly that way. But eventually my relationship with drinking took a turn I never expected, and deciding to step away from it completely shifted the way I live. Now, before I go further, this isn't about preaching that everyone should avoid alcohol forever or that having a drink makes you a bad person. That's not the idea. I just want to share how I went from regularly sipping on glasses of wine, beers, and cocktails to removing alcohol from my life entirely, and what that transition actually looked like. Because at one point, I was drinking between 7 and 14 drinks in a typical week, and at the surface level it didn't even feel like a problem. I thought I had it under control. It was woven into my routine, and it was giving me more than it seemed to be taking away. Or at least, that's what I believed at the time. There's a reason people often call alcohol a social lubricant. It changes how your brain functions in subtle but powerful ways. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that handles judgment, impulse control, and critical thinking, temporarily quiets down when you drink. That's part of why you feel bolder or less cautious with a glass in hand. But there's another layer too. When that same area is subdued, it's harder to fabricate lies or maintain social masks. In other words, sitting down with someone and sharing a drink can feel like you're both lowering your shields. It's a mutual vulnerability pact in liquid form. No wonder then that alcohol has played a role in everything from political summits to ancient peace agreements. Leaders have literally used it to dissolve tensions in the middle of negotiations, and it's been served at banquets and gatherings for over 1,000 years. So when I was 24 and uprooted myself to a completely new city, alcohol became the bridge that helped me connect with strangers. Going out for beers after work, clinking glasses at concerts, or meeting new people over cocktails gave me a sense of belonging I probably wouldn't have found otherwise. Some of the closest friends I have to this day were people I first met while sharing drinks. More than that, those same friendships opened doors for jobs and opportunities that would have slipped by had I spent those nights alone at home. Drinking wasn't just about relaxing or having fun. It became a tool for networking, building relationships, and accelerating my personal growth. With so many benefits tied to it, why in the world would I even think about giving it up? The truth is, I didn't set out with the plan to stop. My decision to quit actually came out of something else entirely. About 1.5 years ago, my health started falling apart in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. I had gained weight, my motivation had collapsed, and most days I felt stuck in a fog. I was reaching the edge of what I could tolerate. So, like many people desperate for change, I jumped on a viral online trend, the 75 Hard Challenge. For 75 days straight, the rules required intense discipline, 2 workouts every day, a strict diet, and absolutely no alcohol. At the time, it felt almost impossible, but I figured if I was going to overhaul my habits, I might as well dive in completely. Now, with so many things changing at once, exercise, nutrition, structure, it was difficult to single out exactly how cutting alcohol was impacting me. But one thing became obvious quickly. My sleep transformed. I remember one night in particular, early in the challenge, when I slept for 10 hours straight. 10. I can't recall the last time that ever happened before. Through most of my 20s, sleep had been my Achilles heel. I could fall asleep easily, but like clockwork I would jolt awake 3 or 4 hours later, staring at the ceiling for hours before drifting off again. It left me constantly exhausted. Yet during those 75 days, although my sleep wasn't perfect, I woke up fewer times through the night and felt more rested overall. That alone was a massive shift. After years of trying morning routines, supplements, meditation, and all sorts of sleep hacks, it turned out the real culprit was that innocent-looking glass of wine I thought was helping me unwind. Because the truth is, alcohol isn't a sleep aid at all. It's the opposite. When you drink in the evening, it doesn't ease you into natural rest. It sedates you. It basically knocks your cortex unconscious, but it prevents your brain from going into the deep, restorative cycles that are necessary. Not only that, but alcohol fragments your sleep into little broken pieces, causing you to wake up over and over again. And if that weren't enough, it blocks the essential dream stage, the rapid eye movement phase, cutting you off from the kind of sleep that rejuvenates memory, creativity, and emotional balance. Once I understood that, everything started to click. My years of struggling to feel rested weren't because I was just a bad sleeper. It was because I was unknowingly sabotaging my nights. So when the 75 days ended, I made a choice. I wasn't going back, at least not right away. I wanted to see if the improvements in my sleep would keep going and if any other positive effects would show up over time. And that's when I began digging into the science more deeply. What I found was shocking. Alcohol, in plain terms, is a toxin. When you drink, it stresses and damages cells throughout your body. It wears down the protective outer layer of your brain, harms beneficial gut bacteria, and hits your liver especially hard. The calories it delivers are nutritionally worthless. It alters genetic expression, interferes with hormone balance, lowers testosterone, raises stress hormones, and drastically increases cancer risk. Basically, every short-term perk of drinking is counterbalanced by damage to your health at nearly every level. That knowledge was enough for me to want to keep going, but something strange happened. As weeks turned into months, nothing monumental seemed to change beyond that initial improvement in sleep. I stayed alcohol-free for 100 days, then 150, but my energy and mood didn't shift as dramatically as I hoped. And on top of that, the social pressures of not drinking became more noticeable. Even though none of my friends were mean about it, the dynamic felt different whenever I ordered sparkling water instead of a cocktail. People would pause, glance at me, and sometimes even decide not to order themselves, as if my choice was silently challenging theirs. I often felt like I was sucking the fun out of the room just by abstaining. It made me wonder if all of this was worth the effort, especially since I wasn't seeing any dramatic new benefits. What I didn't realize back then was that the body and brain don't reset overnight. When alcohol has been part of your routine for years, your internal chemistry adapts to it. Hormones and neurotransmitters recalibrate themselves around its constant presence. And when you stop, it can take half a year, or even longer, for everything to truly return to baseline. For me, the real shift didn't begin until about 6 months in. That's when subtle but undeniable improvements began to snowball, and they were far beyond what I expected. When that 6-month mark finally arrived, something clicked in a way I hadn't felt for years. It was like my brain was finally running, without sand in the gears. Focus, which used to feel like a constant uphill battle, suddenly came with ease. Tasks that once drained me now flowed more smoothly, and I could sit down to work without fighting waves of distraction. For the longest time, I thought I had a problem with attention itself. I even considered if I might have something clinical holding me back. But the truth was simpler. Alcohol had been dulling my mind every single day, and it took months of distance before that fog finally lifted. With sharper focus came a natural boost to productivity. Mornings turned into my strongest hours, which shocked me because I had always labeled myself a night owl. Without alcohol in my system, I found myself waking up at 6 in the morning with real energy. I could walk to the gym, get a workout in, and still feel alert when I sat down at my desk. It wasn't forced discipline anymore. It was just how my body started functioning. That domino effect, better sleep, clearer mornings, sharper focus, began to shape the rhythm of my entire life. And once I wasn't burning energy pushing through mental fog, my stress levels began to drop as well. I didn't need to come home and grab a glass of wine to decompress anymore. I didn't feel wound up in the same way. My evenings shifted naturally toward hobbies, cooking, or even just sipping sparkling water without that gnawing craving for relief. Another thing I hadn't expected was the impact on my finances. Alcohol sneaks into your budget in ways you don't notice. A drink or two out with friends here, a few bottles of wine at home there, it adds up quietly. Once I stepped back, I realized I was saving $70 to $100 a week. That translated into hundreds every month. Sure, a lot of it went into things I enjoyed, like music and records, but the difference was still obvious. Money I used to literally pour away was now staying in my pocket, or being used on things that actually lasted. It was a reminder that drinking isn't just expensive for your body, it quietly drains your wallet too. The emotional side of sobriety took the longest to settle. For a while, not drinking felt like I was standing on the outside of social moments, almost like I wasn't fully part of them. But as time went on, I noticed something else happening. The conversations I had sober were clearer, more memorable, and oddly enough, more genuine. I didn't leave nights out feeling cloudy or second-guessing what I'd said. I didn't wake up with that gnawing sense of regret. Even though I worried that my choice would make me the odd one out, in the end, it allowed me to connect in a way that actually lasted longer than the buzz of a drink ever could. After a full year without alcohol, the results were undeniable. My body felt lighter, my mind sharper, and my days calmer. But that didn't mean I swore off drinking forever. Just like I haven't sworn off desserts even though I eat healthier now, I decided my relationship with alcohol would become one of rarity rather than routine. I no longer needed or wanted 7 to 14 drinks a week. Instead, I reserved it for rare occasions. A toast at a wedding, a holiday, a moment worth marking. That shift transformed drinking from a habit into a deliberate choice. What used to be constant was now something rare and intentional. The bigger lesson wasn't just about alcohol itself, but about perspective. It taught me that change doesn't always reveal itself overnight. Sometimes it takes months of consistency before you notice the deeper effects. It also showed me how much of life is shaped by hidden habits, the quiet routines that either drain us or build us up without us realizing. Alcohol had once given me the illusion of connection and energy, but removing it showed me the truth. Real connection doesn't need a chemical boost, and real energy comes from a body and mind that aren't constantly weighed down. So in the end, did quitting change my life? Absolutely. Not in some dramatic overnight miracle, but in the steady, compounding improvements that made everything easier. Sleeping, working, thinking, living. And while I'll still raise a glass on rare occasions, it's no longer the crutch it once was. Instead of alcohol shaping my days, I finally feel like I'm the one steering them.